Hello, friends. My name is Taling Lesimela. Welcome to Empowering Chats with T. I am joined by a special friend of mine, Delphino, and today we will be chatting about discovering living a life of purpose and embracing who you are. Delphino is a transformational speaker. He's an entrepreneur. He is very passionate about youth development. He's passionate about changing the narrative of African children and just seeing them rise. And I look forward to our conversation tonight. Welcome, Delphino.
Thanks, T.
Yeah, thank you so much. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's beautiful to be here, and thanks for inviting me. Say the first one.
It is. It's the first. It's the first one, actually. So yeah, it's.
Feels special.
Yes, you are. Yes, man. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to our conversation, and what this conversation, to what people should take out from this conversation. It's just to educate, to equip, and just to empower, to transform lives.
Right.
I'm trusting that it's going to be a good one.
I'm looking forward to it.
So me and you are chatting about purpose. I know that you're very passionate about purpose. So that's why I thought he is my guy. He's the right guy for this one. I'm very passionate about purpose as well. I think it's a really big thing. You know what I mean? And where I would like us to start is. What would you say your purpose is, and when and how did you discover it?
Geez. So for me, T, my purpose is Africa.
Mm-hmm.
My purpose is young people, transforming the narrative, the picture, the perception, and I think ultimately it's transforming the outcome of Africa. I think for far too long, people talk about Africa being the dark continent, poor continent.
Yeah.
But yet we've got all of that. We've got the biggest young population in the world, but still we've got so much to show for. I mean, so little to show for it. So for me, it's to try and press the right buttons, put the right systems in place to make sure that we realize that potential. So I think that's my purpose, and everything else that I do is to try and drive towards that.
Yeah. Amazing. I love the work that you're doing.
Thank
By the
you.
way, like with the Wawumbe Center, empowering youth, all the work that you guys are doing, it's incredible. But when then did you discover your purpose, and how? Because I know that there's people that actually do struggle to say, oh my God, how does one actually go about discovering this purpose? Is it something that happens overnight? Is it a process? You know what I mean? And
I think it's very difficult, right? Because it's different from person to person. And for me, I think it was a long process. When I was still young, I wanted to be an actuary because I thought the title sounded good. And my mom was studying towards that at that point. But then I realized how much work she had to do. I'm like, nah, fam. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And then as I was growing up, I thought, I speak a lot, so I want to be a lawyer. Then I realized, that's also quite a lot of reading.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to do business, which is then what I studied. But in all that career process, there was one thing that was always very common and constant. It was the questions that I always had. I think in our conversation we've spoken about how I always used to ask myself, why is it that we are so rich yet so poor? Why is Africa, why is it like I was so frustrated from a very young age, in my teenage years. I actually started writing a book. I've told you about it. When I was really, really young, I think it was like 14, 15. The book is not yet out.
Please can you finish that book, sir? The world is waiting for that book.
Yeah, I'm also waiting. but I think it's still the process. So I think that questioning process is where I realize it's something that is sitting deeply within me. So I went into business. I studied business. I studied finance, but I wanted to find solutions to these problems that I was asking myself, all these questions. So that's when I started Waumbe. And when I was just finishing high school, I'd go and speak in high schools or in orphanages or in boys' homes, and it felt good and it felt natural. Sitting and looking at investments and portfolios, I could do it, but it was hard work and it felt like, yeah, guys. But when I was speaking to young people, it felt home, it felt natural. And the reception and my rapport with young people has always been great. So I think that's when I was seeing that's when I realized, I think this is actually what I was born to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So purpose is that thing that you were born to do, and that thing that you do so effortlessly, that comes naturally.
Yeah. So which is what I was explaining from my perspective. It's like you do it so effortlessly. It frustrates you.
Yeah. It also fulfills you.
Yeah. When you do it, it fulfills you. Like it's like when you wake up, it's like at the back of your head. Like there are some people that are so into fashion.
Yeah.
Like you. You look good. Like you do it so effortlessly. For me, I've got to ask my wife, what must I wear? Because I don't know how to do this. Like there are people that can do this effortlessly. There are people that can draw, and I think that's it for them. And when they do it, it's so natural. So I think that's where purpose for me comes out. Those things that irk you, make you happy, and satisfy you when you do them. Yeah.
Dr. Miles actually once said that. I remember he once said that your purpose is actually that one thing that actually makes you so mad when you think about it. Like, you know, like you get so mad about, maybe let's say you when you think about JBV, you know, like if it makes you mad, that could be your purpose. Or that thing that makes you so happy when you think about it. Like, you know, like you just feel so happy and so content, so fulfilled. So like, so that's just reminding me of that. No, that's awesome. So, but why do you think it's important for people to discover and know who they are?
That question always excites me because it's sad. Well, I think from the beginning, I think every person or everything that was created by God has a specific reason and a purpose. And God is very strategic in that way. If you look at body structure, body anatomy, everything is perfectly put there because there's a purpose. Something so small as eyelashes. If you don't have eyelashes, you realize that everything has a purpose. So I think the sad part is a lot of us have lived our lives and have not discovered it, or we have discovered it and we haven't pursued that. So we are living in a life of frustration. Like you might really have a good paying job, you coining it, but when you really go home, there's a sort of an emptiness. There's a frustration, and I think a lot of people then think it's the boss, it's the work, but there's really that gap that's missing because you're not in your place of purpose. And I think the other thing that's really important is the world needs us to fulfill and be in our rightful place. Like for example, the greatest people that have lived, presidents, if they hadn't fulfilled that, then the countries would have lacked leadership. The people that invented these light bulbs, the people that invented cars, that invented airplanes, the people that are inventing Facebook and all these things that we have today, that's them living their purpose. If they hadn't done it, then the world would have been stinged of that great thing. So I think give us what we must get. Live out your purpose, because I think that's why it's important.
We have to produce.
Exactly.
You know, the world needs us. You know, every one of us is here for a purpose.
Certainly. And like that you're saying, the world is awaiting us, and I think the Bible says that the world awaits the manifestation of the sons and daughters.
Exactly. Sure. That is so awesome. And one of the things that, like, ever since I've met you, like, and I mentioned it when we started here, like, you are so passionate about development, youth development. You know, you're so passionate about Africa, you know, the African child, knowing who they are and rising, you know what I mean? Why?
Because one, I was born in Africa. And like I was saying, there is a specific reason that I was born in here. So I've got to live out that specific purpose. And also I think traveling the continent and seeing all the problems that we go through just kind of irks me, because we've got so much potential And I always said, I was speaking to at the Youth African Summit, that if the continent of Africa would just close out its borders and say, we will trade inter-Africa, we don't need anything from outside Africa, we would thrive and the whole world would not survive.
Sure.
They have built their worlds, their infrastructure from Africa. So for me, it's like, if only we could, we know it, but there's just not enough will for us to pursue that. So that's the thing that I'm trying to drive at. And also young people, I think that's where the future is and the present, because this generation, they've done well. They liberated us. But I also think their time is up, because we need young people to start taking spaces and start to do what the next 2 generations require. So that's where I love youth development and putting us up to the place where we're able to drive our continent, innovative ideas. And I think a lot of the conversations that we have with African children is always making them feel as second best and not good enough. So for me, I want to change that perception and that mindset for young people that are born in the rural areas, the township communities, where you don't really see things that excite you, that spark innovation, that spark, the goodness of life. I always want to expand their thinking. So that's why I'm in love with the youth. I'm in love with Africa, and that's why I do what I do.
And I like that you said that. You've touched on that actually, like where we are always made to feel like second base, like we're not good enough, and it's so important, obviously, to know, for people to know that you are actually not, you are first class. You are, like, if you only knew what you carry, and I think it is so important for people to actually know that, and which is going to lead me to my next question, because all of those things that we are or that are influencing what we do in life, they've got roots, they've got roots, it's stories that we were told, either by communities, societies, or families where we come from, what I mean, where you've heard nothing good comes from that family, nothing good will come from that family. Nothing good will come from Nigeria or whatever country, you know what I mean? So that is planted inside of us and we grow up believing that, For you, what were those stories or those things that were spoken to you that kind of hindered or maybe were, like also standing in the way of you becoming the person that you were? And how did you overcome that?
Such a good question. So when I was in primary school, right, I went to my first 6 years of primary school. I went to a government school. Not so good, not so fancy, but it was good enough. We had a good education. So my English wasn't bougie. I didn't have the twang, and it didn't, sound as roll off the tongue. My English is still very African, even up until now. But in my last year of primary school, grade 7, I went to a primary school because my parents wanted to try and give me the best education. So I went into a private school called Gateway Primary School in Zimbabwe. So this is the last year of high school. You know how kids are. If you don't speak like them, act like them,
they can be mean.
They can be very mean. So, the way that I would pronounce some English words, geez, man, they would laugh at me. And I think that kind of made me fall back into my shell, and that stays like, maybe I shouldn't speak. Maybe I'm not smart enough because my English is not as good as these kids. So I really wanted to speak, but I held it back. So I think now I have like kind of broke through that, which is why I speak a lot. Even my English, if it's not perfect, I don't have the twang, but with my English, I can still give a message that can transform somebody's life and transform the continent, because my voice must also be heard. So it's kind of those things that I've had to overcome. So that's one. In our next conversation, I'll tell you more.
That's good. The thing is, it's so funny that we live in a society where sameness is seen as powerful and different is seen as weird.
Problematic,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
So we need to start embracing different. You know, like you touched on that, God made us all differently. You know what I mean? So we need to get to that point where we start embracing different. You know what? If I don't sound like you sound, it's okay.
It's fine.
There's nothing wrong with that. You know, appreciate and embrace people as they are.
And same as boring also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait for our next conversation. I can't.
We should do it soon, eh?
Yeah,
do
we
it soon.
should. Yeah. So before we wrap this up, any final closing last words that you would like to encourage to say to the young people watching here?
I mean, like I was saying earlier, I think it's important. The conversation that you have started is really important, and for anybody who is young, even old, I think it's critical that we all find our purpose. When we all operate in our purpose or in the divine design that God has put us here for, then we're able to operate efficiently, effortlessly, and effectively. It's like when Beyonce goes on stage or Makadzi goes on stage, Cassper Nyovest goes on stage. Don't put Cassper Nyovest or as a pilot. He will crash you. Put Cassper Nyovest on stage. That's what he does. And I think we are forcing ourselves to be in place that we shouldn't be. If you're good with hair, if you're good with makeup, do it. Sometimes it's not as fancy, as bougie as an office job, but you can make it great because that's what you're born to do. That's you are in your element. So I think that's really, really important. And I think secondly, it's like we're talking about, we are not second class as a continent, as a people, no matter where you're coming from. I think my message is very consistent. No matter where you come from, you can achieve greatness. No matter who you are, what your family has done, you can achieve things that nobody has seen. Because one, God created you, and God does not make mistakes. Secondly, you've got what it takes inside you to achieve what you need to achieve. Yeah.
Amazing. Mr. President! I call him Mr. President. I call him Mr. President. Delphino for President. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah. I really do appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining me tonight or today or this day or
whatever time you're watching it.
Yeah, whether it's morning or afternoon, you're watching this morning or afternoon.
Yeah.
But I really do appreciate you taking your time to come and chat with us and have this important conversation, because it really is important, you know what I mean? And I hope that the people that are going to see this, that are going to watch this, will be empowered, that you've been transformed, that you have been inspired. Thank you so much. So finally, where can people find you? How can people get in touch with you?
Don't come to my house. I'm joking. If you know where my house is, come through. But on my social media page, Delphino Machikicho. And my Facebook page for business, Delphino Machikicho Consultants. On Instagram, on Twitter, is Delphino Tawona. You can follow me and then we can engage. And I love to speak to people. Yeah, so speak to me. Let's speak.
Delphino Machikicho, ladies and gentlemen, you were watching Empowering Chats with T. Thank you so much for tuning in.